But how about it for the great Jim Avila, everyone?
Yeah.
Jim now writes a column on media and politics, and boy, never has media and politics been more at the center of things, I think, than now as various narratives are being woven, Jim. I'll give you the latest one. The CNN polling that suggests that there is no confidence in Joe Biden. People are unhappy with the economy. They almost in every category in the CNN poll, they reflect this lackluster kind of enthusiasm, if there's any enthusiasm at all. And in fact, in one instance, and again, this is a pretty extensive poll on down, there is I say extensive in the number of questions. I actually, and I'm a pessimist and I would be like a worrier, but I actually think this poll is total BS. No, maybe not total BS, but a lot of BS. But anyway, it suggests, and it's being really played out. That's why I want to talk to you about it quickly, and then we can get into other stuff in media, because CNN is running with it, right? It's their poll. They're talking about the fact that in an election between Trump and Biden might not win. So against that backdrop, I want to ask you both about that poll and just about media in general running with a story like this to create the horse race, I think, on some level.
Well, there's a lot to unpack here. First of all, I think there is a problem. Biden does have a problem. His age is an issue. And I think that's going to be the way it is. The good part is that people, as long as Trump is in the race, the vote for Biden is really a vote against Trump. And he will, I believe, prevail if it remains as it is. The best thing that could happen is that he wants to go down in history as a legacy president, the one who turned us around, who brought us back from the brink of disaster to normalcy, and steps down. Michael Shore, who's not here today, but has told us before, he believes that will happen. I'm not as convinced it will happen. My view of politicians is that they rarely give up power if they don't have to. So that's a problem. The other problem that Democrats have, there's two of them right now, and the New York Times was big on one of them today, is immigration right now is
Right.
blowing up in the Democrats' faces. The move by the Texas and Florida governors has actually worked, where they have shipped hundreds of thousands of immigrants to New York and Chicago and LA, and it's caused a crisis that the Democrats have not gotten a hold of. I have a couple things to say about that when we get into it a little bit deeper. But
I definitely want to touch on it, but go ahead. Yes.
yes, and then crime. The perception of crime remains, especially among your Bay Area listeners and viewers, is that it's out of control. The numbers don't really back that, especially violent crime. But that doesn't really matter when, friends of mine who live in the Bay Area tell me all the time, especially in areas like Market Street or over by Jack London Square in Oakland, they don't want to walk outside. It's terrible. And you see these, even down here in LA, you see these smash and grab operations, which really aren't dangerous to people. Those folks just want to get out of there with the goods. They don't stop and harm anybody. But those images those two issues are really dragging Biden down. Now, we can get into any one of those that you want to. The third point, though, on this poll is, besides the fact that there's some validity to it, is that even if you think it's accurate, it's a picture in time. Okay, so don't get all upset. You get motivated. You should motivate people. Maybe it's going to do some good. Who knows? Maybe we're getting too lackadaisical about it all. But also, this poll has been criticized heavily in the left wing, among the left wing media, because it oversamples Republicans. Now, Philip Bump in the Washington Post writes about that today, if you want to get into it deeper at some point. And the fact that there's a reason for the oversampling Republicans, because this was primarily This was primarily a poll about the Republican primary. So they polled more Republicans than they did Democrats. So when they get to the overall issue, it may not hold water of Biden versus Trump. But so there's a lot of criticism for that, and that you have to take that into consideration when you look at this poll. So
that there's a lot
in
there.
general. That's the overview.
Yeah. No, and I like that, and you really touched on what I was talking about, which is that the sample was weighted. Karen D says regarding crime, it's up to the states, governors, and the mayors to take care of business. That is on Newsom and the mayors. I think there's truth to that. I think that sadly, the perception of how safe you are and how happy you are with life in wherever you are, these cities and places around the country, sadly, that's attached to those people in power. So you're always going to, you have to own that. I mean, even though you may not really legit own it, if you're president. I mean, it just contributes to an overall feeling.
Yeah, the media has to do a better job, and I'm going to touch on this on my column that's going to drop next Tuesday, is that those two issues are key, but the media needs to do a better job of going beyond the perception, okay? Every time, so when the New York Times writes about, like today, they write about the immigration issue. They don't write about the fact, and what Democrats should be doing is say, hey, wait a minute, and then they should repropose the immigration reform that they did in 2015 that the Republicans shot down. Come out with a strong package that includes more border security, includes more judges to go through the asylum claims, so they're not all backed up at the border waiting for 4 years before they can get to see a judge. A worker program that allows workers to come in, and as long as they stay clean, to continue to stay in this country and work, instead of now when they sneak in and they have to sneak to work. All those things were in a package in 2015 that the Tea Party and the Republican Party shot down, and it was a bipartisan proposal. It included McCain, it included the other Arizona senator, it included Marco Rubio. Those folks were standing up there and were in favor of this. And what the Democrats should be doing is proposing, they have the Senate, have a senator propose something like this, pass it in the Senate, give it over to the House, and then make the House either vote on it to make it clear who's really gumming up the works. It's the Republicans, not the Democrats, and put the issue back on them. And they're not doing it. And that's the real problem.
I love that you went through it, because I was actually going to ask you to review that which was proposed. And as you say, it was a bipartisan proposal, and really would have been something, put a huge dent certainly in the problem with immigration. But that said, now it's become really a campaign issue. And so they've had the ability to make political hay, essentially, is what the GOP.
Yeah, and the Democratic response, the Biden administration response, unfortunately, has been, we're going to ignore this. And that's not going to work. You can't ignore it. It is on top of everybody's mind. And, this is going to be an issue-oriented election, because neither one of the candidates that are leading now are very popular and are very, charismatic, and then you don't want to follow them. It's going to be all about it's going to be about the issues, and you got to get on the right side of the issues.
By the way, quick note that Michael Shore, who is usually joining Jim, is at a Trump rally right now, covering a Trump rally, and he's trying to get a signal out, but he can't get a signal from where it is. So that's why we're just talking to Jim without Michael today. So far, if he can jam one in, we'll put him on, of course. It's interesting that you and then we can move on from the poll, but you realize that this is where the media comes in. I feel as though on one level, the media reflects public sentiment, and on another level, the media dictates public sentiment. Jim, I think to the degree to which I'm carpet bombed with these polls that say Biden's too old, I get it. But and I was at a dinner last night where, essentially they were saying they don't like Biden that much. They're I don't know how I don't know how they voted. I think they lean probably right. You know what I mean, on certain issues, probably because of taxes. And this couple was saying, yeah, they just they don't like Biden. When I kind of queried them as to why, they didn't really have an answer. It was sort of like, well, he just doesn't seem like he's in command of a lot of things. And I said, well, what things do you feel he's not in command of? I mean, I tried to press them a little bit without being a jerk, and there was just nothing there. And you realize then, and this is the point I'm getting to, how the media and how perception is so much a part of things and a part of creating a feeling about someone. It is high school. It's all, I think, on some level, perception that is dictated by things like charisma and like a je ne sais quoi, like I don't know what it is I like about that guy, but it's something, or an ability to communicate. I mean, guy, generically, man or a woman. I mean, Hillary had a lot of negatives around her, and I don't know where they came from on some level. So anyway, please speak to that.
Well, first of all, on your first point, the media does, we put out polls to make headlines, okay, especially in the summertime when it's slow. So CNN had a day's worth of news, maybe 2 days worth of news and not only were they talking about it on their programs, but all across the media spectrum, we're quoting the CNN poll. So there's a bit of marketing involved. And it's much easier to talk horse race than it is to talk the issues. And that's a problem. We have that problem. I just wish that they would, and what I try to keep hitting on my column is that we have a responsibility to, if we're going to report, and you have to report the fact that these pictures of people running into stores and running out, and you have to report, that women are having their purses snatched off the street, and people are having their windows of their cars smashed in San Francisco, and people are grabbing their laptops out. You got to report that. At the same time, equally, you should be reporting in the same body of the story the statistics that show that it's not really as bad as it seems because of these pictures, because of social media. And secondly, you should also point out that Joe Biden was never in favor of defunding the police. Joe Biden has been, to progressives like myself, the antithesis of what good policing should be. I mean, he and Clinton poured in billions of dollars to hire more cops. So to attack him as being anti-cop, anti-law enforcement is just silly. And the media needs to point that out when they do these stories. They're going to do a story where the Republicans are attacking them. A, Biden should be defending himself, which he's not. And B, the media has a responsibility to present what the real truth is. And they're not doing that. Same with immigration. Every time they say that New York is being flooded with immigrants, and that the Republicans, are gaining because of this issue, like the New York Times did today, they need to effectively call out the fact that the Republicans are the ones who continually kill immigration reform. They want the issue. Republicans want it to be like this.
Yeah, so I mean, I think that was the implication of the New York Times piece today. I mean, I think it was in the headline. GOP finally. Yeah. I don't remember what it was. Something like GOP finally got what they want out of immigration or something. But I mean, it's a real problem. I'm super glad you led with it because I think it's a huge issue, and you'll find it across the political spectrum. Frustration with the immigration problem. That's the reason Obama, had that, had floated that. It seemed successfully a dent in the immigration issue. Now I'm going to bring on a little bit, Jim, some of what we get here, and I like that we get it. I think it also reflects part of what's out there. This is from Ray. Let's see. When Trump was in office, we had gas under $2 a gallon. $2?
Not true.
No, that's true. That's not true. It's not true.
Okay.
A gallon of milk was $3.50. Now gas is almost $4 a gallon, and milk is $5.35. So where has Joe Biden Build Back Better or Bidenomics been? Yeah, I think there's.
Well, the premise is wrong.
Yeah, exactly. It's patently false, Ray. But I mean, I do believe that's out there. Also, you had this guy came in, Biden. I mean, I'm not trying to give him any breaks, but I'm gonna, Trump and the GOP really screwed the pooch, and the economy was being affected by COVID as well. And huge tax cuts is what they got through. and they dropped a ton of money on the economy, right? I mean, the COVID relief package was immense. I think you talk about the expenditures of the Democrats. I think the Republicans under Trump, they dropped $3 trillion on the debt. So I don't know where that,
Yeah.
but that's out there, Jim. That I suppose is just an extreme position. Are you saying, says Champagne Wishes, to use the media to manipulate and change the perception of the people? No, I'm saying the media already affects the perception of the people. I'm not saying to use it to manipulate it. How about you, Jim? You're saying show the whole story is what I'm getting from your remarks.
Yeah, I mean, you shouldn't be saying that letting Republicans say that immigration is because we don't have control of the borders, without saying, well, we had a chance to control the borders and Republicans shot it down. And what I'm really putting the onus on is not so much the media, well, they should do that, is the Biden administration. They should push through Congress, the Senate, which they control, an immigration reform bill that is similar to what they had in 2015, and see what the Republicans do with it. What they're going to do with it is shut it down. And that will eliminate that as an issue in the election for Democrats. I don't know why they're not doing it. They have the power to do it. They need to attack it.
In response to Ray, Harry says, Ray, why aren't you doing the research instead of believing Fox, OAN, and Breitbart? Yeah, it did feel Breitbartish to me. I'm sorry, Ray.
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing, yeah. I mean, look, inflation took a huge hit because we didn't buy anything for 2 years. We were sitting back in our houses and ordering Uber Eats, and we're not going out and not buying stuff. And that's one reason. So then demand shot up because we got freed a little bit and we're out there spending again, which is a good thing. And that shot up prices. Also, there was a supply chain issue where the ports were closed and we couldn't get stuff in. That raised prices. And then we have greed, my friend. We have greed from corporations which are making record profits to this day. The people that Ray supports, his people, the Republicans support and give handouts to these big corporations which raise prices and keep them up there. The oil companies, there's no reason for gas to be at $5 a gallon. There's no reason. It should be down, but it's being kept up by oil companies who are answering to their stockholders and keeping the prices up. That's the reason for it. And that's somewhat to be true about food prices, although those have gone down now. But other things have remained up because of greed.
It's interesting, and I'm just reading other remarks Ray's made, and I don't have a problem with provocateurs like Ray, although I think he's a true believer more than he says I'm in Florida. And I do my research, and Biden is pretending to be president. If you're ignorant, you need to do the research. He is dead. Listen, is that so? Ray, let me understand something. Is Biden responsible for the crap you're talking about, or isn't he? On the one hand, you say he's not. He's dead. He's DOA. On the other hand, you say he's responsible for all this stuff. The other thing I would say is Biden's travel schedule alone would kill me. Okay? It's insane. He's at the G20 summit today. He's all over the effing world. This dude definitely has more energy than I do. He's biking. I'm telling you, the dude is literally more energetic than am I. Now, he speaks deliberately. He was a former stutterer. He doesn't communicate as dynamically, but the idea somehow that he's DOA, I just don't buy it. I mean, then there's this from Adam David. They give Trump credit for the gas prices during COVID, but don't blame him for the market collapse. Neither one have anything to do with the president. I think you've detailed that pretty well, Jim.
Yeah, and I think the other thing to remember about Trump is his major contribution to the presidency was a tax cut which benefited his buddies and hurt the general public. Now, Ray lives in a bubble out in Florida, and God bless him. And I'm not going to call names like he is. If it was me, I would have blocked him already because he called a name. If he's going to do that and call us names, he doesn't get to participate in the conversation as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, Kim's our blocker. I'm sorry, Jim. I let that.
I just don't think that's right. I mean, we can have a conversation about this. I refuted his arguments without calling him a name.
Sure.
And I think that that's what we should do. We should have a civil conversation about it. He's wrong,
He's blocked.
but doesn't mean he's necessarily a bad person. So,
Kim loves blocking people, so it was a really delight.
I
Jim,
see
how
her
are you?
fingers
Yeah.
at work now.
The more I read his messages, and then he came out with the, calling people stupid, and I'm like, you're out.
Yeah, that's right. Anyway,
I mean,
go
once
ahead,
you start
Jim.
calling names, that's not worthy of the Mark Thompson show.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you. So the last thing I want to touch on is revelations about what was actually attempted in this coup attempt that was culminating with January 6th, and what's coming out of this Eastman defense, or the back and forth in his attempts to keep himself from becoming a disbarred lawyer, okay? And what's coming out is essentially they were prepared to, and there were others involved, among them perhaps Chuck Grassley, they were prepared to replace Mike Pence, given his reluctance to go through with their plan to deny certification of the electors. They were prepared to substitute Mike Pence, who was going to be missing, okay? He was going to be in all of the madness. They were ready to substitute him with a Chuck Grassley, and there are even, I think, others that were named, but high-profile GOP senators. This is, again, these leaked revelations and revelations that appear point to such an insanely developed conspiracy to take over the U.S. government. It's astounding to me. I mean, I really, no matter how used to all of this you get, I think the revelations just blow you over.
Yeah, and if they would have been competent, we'd be in big trouble. But they're not competent. Unfortunately, they're not competent. And guys like Rudy Giuliani, not competent. Guys like John Eastman, not competent. Going to lose his law license. Yes, what he said about his plan, the secondary plan was have Pence out of the picture, either not show up or get delayed, or the Secret Service. That's one of the reasons why perhaps Mike Pence refused to get in the truck with the Secret Service. They didn't even know where they were going to take him.
Yeah,
and so their plan was to have, you talk about old, Chuck Grassley, approaching 90 this week, take over because he's Senator pro tem and would be next in line to take over the Senate and wield the gavel. Now he has claimed that he wasn't involved in that plan and that he was only talking about if Pence had to leave to go to the bathroom or something, he would take over. But it's kind of shallow. At 1 o'clock Pacific time, when Mark goes off the air, everybody tune in and listen to the Oberman countdown podcast today, which does the Eastman thing beautifully and outlines exactly what they were trying to do and links an Eastman email to Donald Trump himself. And he was involved in this. And that's why, I mean, what Oberman calls Eastman is the worst witness ever for Donald Trump. He's the guy who's going to bring him down. Take a listen to that.
Take a listen to that. Don't do it at 1 o'clock. 1 o'clock, you got the after party live with Kim. But
okay,
after that,
1:10 or whatever it is.
Yeah, whatever. Whenever you get around to
free.
it. I do want to leave you with this because you've certainly there's been incoming fire today with Jim Avila. I stop my whole day to listen to Jim and Michael every Friday. Thank you for your insight, Jim. How about that?
Thank you, Deidre.
Yeah, very, very nice. And I also had some. You're getting a lot of love. You're getting a lot of love, Jim Avila. That's all I'll say.
Well, that's always appreciated. But I don't mind. Like you, I don't mind having a conversation with guys like Ray. But as soon as they turn ugly, they're gone. As far as I'm concerned, they are on my Twitter feed, and it happens all the time now on Twitter. It's just the algorithms have so gone crazy that all you get is right-wing stuff.
Yeah. And this is interesting to go out with this. Biden's stellar, but we need young, smart Democrats in his administration bringing in a top advisor, Marilyn Schneider. I think that there are young, smart Democrats in his administration already, Marilyn. I would take issue. His whole it's not like it's a bunch of 80-year-olds sitting around a table deciding stuff. And by the way, even if it were, if they're smart 80-year-olds, I have no problem with that. But I think his administration is populated by some young, vibrant thought makers, don't you think, Jim?
Yeah, I mean, I think, look, Joe Biden is better than the alternative at this point, and probably at every point if the alternative is Donald Trump. I have said on this broadcast for a while that while I respect Joe Biden and think that he deserves to be on Mount Rushmore for what he's done for this country as a transitional president, he said he was going to be a transitional president. Let's let him do that. And I wish he would step it down and let the Democrats have a viable primary where they pick a viable candidate who is young and has more vigor. And that's what I would, and I think that would address many of the issues that Democrats have right now with their own candidate. Look, Joe Biden's a great guy. I've had lunch with him. I've been when he was at the vice president at his house up in DC. And he has a party every summer for the press. He's a nice guy, but it's clear. I'm not so worried about his mental acuity at this point. Yeah. What I'm concerned about is that his health may not hold up. That worries me more than anything. Is that at the wrong time, just before the election, or in the few months before the election, or after the conventions, or in the first year of his presidency, he has a medical issue that has a problem, that lends him a problem. The actuary tables are that that's going to happen. He's 80 years old, and I'm concerned. So
if you knew he was going to be fine to 85, you would have it's green lights.
I would have no problem. No.
Okay. Jim Avila does a column, and we'll feature it. We try to feature it frequently anyway on Tuesdays. That's when it drops from Barrett Media. But here you can find him regularly, and you are such a fan favorite. I love exploiting you because you are loved by so many.
About time somebody is exploiting me.
I got it.
I keep telling my girlfriend, and she, I don't know.
Yeah, well, it's you got to stay at it.
Can I throw one at Mr. Avila before we dismiss him from the jury?
Please,
panel?
Kim, I want to hear from you.
So you talked about Grassley and him saying, he wasn't going to ever do that. And he meant something different. Of course, when the indictments are flying, you don't want to be connected to it. And today I saw this, I don't know if you saw the full indictment out of Georgia listing other people that should have been indicted but weren't. And now there's a response.
Yeah, the grand jury report. Yes.
Yeah, there's a response from Senator Lindsey Graham, who is defending phone calls that he made to Georgia's top election official after the 2020 presidential race. He says he only asked legitimate questions about the way that state conducted the election. Nothing to see here, move along. Do you think they would be taking kind of more of a belligerent turn about all this if there weren't indictments issued and now they kind of have to backtrack? Because
I don't know that I understand what you're saying.
Well, it seemed like it was something to brag about. Like, yeah, we're fighting for Trump. We're this, we're that. And now the indictments are, and everyone's like, oh, backpedal.
Yeah, well, I think we're seeing a lot of silence among Republicans who were not so silent a little while ago. I think that, along with the January 6th sentences, have calmed down the right quite a bit, because it's serious business and folks are going to prison for a long time. I think that's a problem. Now, I do believe that what the state grand jury did, so there were two grand juries, right? You understand, there was a first grand jury who wrote the report, which said that Lindsey should have been indicted. Right. And then there was the grand jury who did the indictments, who came back, and we don't know what they said. We know that the district attorney then took all that information and decided not to indict Graham. Now, I have to trust that district attorney. She's doing a pretty damn good job. And she's standing up to people like Jim Jordan, who she told, that he's trying to intervene in a district attorney's work. And she is a strong person. So when she decides that there may be trouble bringing a Lindsey Graham case, I trust her that what she didn't want to do was cloud up the situation where some people might get off and some people might be convicted. So if there was a chance that he would be acquitted or a hung jury, I think she's only going after the solid cases at this point.
It was quite the revelation to see that they passed on the Lindsey Graham thing, because he's so all over it. He was at the time in a high profile way. I mean, we knew Lindsey Graham's involvement, so it was wild to see the charging jury, as you suggested, the charging grand jury not passing on that. But
nothing would have made me happier if I could be sitting here talking about a Lindsey Graham indictment. But I have to trust her. If I'm going to trust her to bring the charges, I have to trust her not to bring the charges. And I think, there must be a reason.
There's just so much selling of your soul to on the GOP side. It's astounding what is now passing for okay. And
Lindsey Graham doesn't have a soul.
Thank you. So leading that parade is Lindsey Graham, which is what I was getting to.
Right.
So. All right, we love you, pal. Thank you so much for being here. The great Jim Avila, everyone.
All right, take care, everybody. Have a good week.
Yeah. Hi, it's Mark, and I thought that was great. Hit the notification bell. You'll know whenever there's a new video being dropped, and please subscribe to our channel to help us save the universe.